I'm back for another college football season, 2024, 2025 season. Something in my face, already starting out crazy. It's hard to believe. Look, I'm back. I appreciate the people asking where the video's at. Look, I am back for the college football season. Week 0 didn't really get me out of bed. Week 1 gets me out of bed with some games. I'm going to kind of go through who I think is going to win the conferences, kind of what I think some of these teams in the top 25 are going to end up doing this year. I'm going to go through my playoff picks. That was pretty tough. I'm going to go through my Heisman winner, and I'm going to go through picks this week. I don't want to have it too crazy. I don't want to bore it down too much with like, oh, this and that team. And I don't know every team. I'm not going to sit here and act like I do. I'm going to keep it simple. I'm going to keep it plain. And that's just what I'm going to do. We're going to jump right into it.
Third down for us.
Going into this season, it is a lot different than in years past, right? We had the 4-team playoff for many years. Now we have the 12-team playoff. We've just expanded more. And I don't know if more is always better. I think 12 teams is kind of the perfect formula. But look, we're going to be talking at the end of this year when the 12th team gets picked. We're going to say we need 16 teams, right? So it's very tough. I will say going through the playoff picks for 12 was very hard to do. It was very hard to kind of narrow that down. 10 and 11 were really tough for me to pick on it. But first I want to talk about who I think is going to win the Big Four conferences, which then get the first round bye in the playoff. Looking at the SEC, I think Georgia's going to win. I think Georgia has what Alabama used to have, right? They have, it's just reload. You don't really lose much. Your quarterback is starting to become a star. Could be a top 5 pick. You have the weapons. You have the defense. You just know that they're going to be there. And now, especially with Nick Saban out of the SEC, it's kind of Georgia's for the taking. It's Kirby Smart's for the taking. So I like Georgia to win the SEC. Looking at the Big Ten, you have 4 new teams coming in. You have Washington, Oregon, USC, UCLA. Kind of add to that umbrella of the new Big Ten and kind of the difference in college football just from a year ago to now, right? The conference realignment, bigger conferences, these weird geographical formational conferences, right? Like West Coast with the Midwest. It's still very weird. But I think at the end of the day, there's one team to me that's going to win the Big Ten. I like Ohio State. I really like Ohio State, especially what they have on defense and with the addition of Chip Kelly. That is probably not talked about enough when it's looked at Ohio State because what has been their problem? Toughness, running the football the last couple of years. Chip Kelly does all that very, very well. And that is now going to be a staple, I think, of this Ohio State team. They got a quarterback that's going to fit that mold in Will Howard where it's like, we don't need you to do too much, but we just need you to be able to make plays, give it to the wide receivers when needed, and they still have great wide receivers. But now you have 2 great running backs. With Junkins and Henderson, you just know what they're going to be. They're going to run the football, and they're going to play very good defense. So I like Ohio State to win the Big Ten. Looking at the ACC and Big 12, there's a drop-off, right? To me, you have the SEC, and then there's a little bit of a drop-off with the Big Ten. Just based off of teams this year. Now, I get Michigan won last year, the Big Ten won it, but looking at just this year's teams, I feel like there's a little bit of a drop-off from the top SEC teams to the top Big Ten teams. Now, do I think Ohio State is close to Georgia? Yes, I do. I just, deep down inside, I trust Kirby more than I trust Ryan Day when I look at that. But looking at the ACC, it's a little bit tougher. Florida State, a lot of people had it. They looked bad last week. Georgia Tech kind of beat them. Georgia Tech looked very good. Not good enough to win the ACC, but you look at Florida State and it's like, okay, you go undefeated last year, you cry about not making the playoffs. You don't get in, you get demolished by Georgia. And then you come into this year, you get DJU, you're supposed to be Florida State, you're supposed to be very good again, and you lose to Georgia Tech. Florida State did not look good to me. Now I get it's week 0, as we call it. But look, DJU, a little overrated, maybe one of the most overrated quarterbacks in college football history, I'd say. All I hear about is 6'5", 240 pounds, he has great athleticism, can throw the football, blah, blah, blah. Never ends up doing anything. You lose to Georgia Tech week 1. So when I look at the ACC, I like Clemson. What I like about Clemson is, 1, the schedule, not too difficult. You get a quarterback coming back. for his third year now in Cade Klubnik. I want to say third year. I think it's the wacky with how many years kids have been in school. You have Dabo. I know what they're going to be. They're going to have a very good defense, play complementary football on offense. I think they're going to be very good. I like Clemson to win the ACC. And then in the Big 12, this is different because now you have this very much different Big 12. But out of all the conference realignment, they made the most sense with who they added in. And I think a newcomer is going to win the Big 12. I like Utah. I like Kyle Whittingham, and I like Cameron Rising. I trust those two. Cameron Rising's been in school for 50 years. Kyle Whittingham's been at Utah for 100 years. They're going to be able to come in and add some physicality to the Big 12 and kind of, I don't want to say dominate the Big 12, but I think put their own stamp on Big 12 football, especially now with Texas and Oklahoma out. They play differently than the other Big 12 teams, and I think that's going to help them tremendously. So to win the Big 4 and to have first round bye in the playoff, Georgia, Ohio State, Clemson, Utah. Now looking at some other notable top 25 teams, because I know it'd be tough to be like, Caleb, what does these other teams look like? Look, I think Oregon's going to be very good. I think Oregon's going to win 10 or 11 games. Same with Texas and the SEC. I think Texas is going to win 10 or 11 games. I really like those two teams. What I like about Oregon is Danny Lanning brings the physicality from Georgia up to Oregon. It's worked out very well since. He gets a quarterback in Dylan Gabriel, who's another experienced quarterback, and I think that helps them a lot. They get the Stort kid from Texas A&M as wide receiver. So I think they're going to be very good. The only problem I have with Oregon is their transition not only to Big Ten football from the Pac-12, but just what goes into the travel of having to go to the Midwest. Just how is that going to look? So I think 10-2, 11-1. They play Ohio State in the regular season. Not saying that they can't beat Ohio State in the regular season, and Ohio State beat them again in the Big Ten championship game. But I like Oregon in that 10-2, 11-1 range. Texas, same thing. Like, you got to play Georgia in the regular season. That's a big game. So I think 10-2, 11-1. Now, they lost a lot on defensive, up the middle on defensive, but I like their edges. I like Quinn Ewers, and I believe in Steve Sarkisian, right? Like, he is going to have an offense that's going to be explosive, going to be able to make plays. And I think they're just going to be able to build off the momentum that they had last year. Now, this is where it's like kind of a toss-up, like where some of these teams can go, right? Like, I look at Alabama now. Nick Saban no longer at Alabama. Kellen DeBoer comes over from Washington. You still pretty much have some pieces from Nick Saban, right? Jalen Milroe's still there, new offensive style in the SEC. I think Alabama's going to go 8-4, 9-3. It's just you lose Nick Saban. That's going to do so much. And in Kellen DeBoer's first year as head coach at Alabama, there's going to be pressure. There's going to be things that happen that you're never going to expect to happen. So I think Alabama 8-4, 9-3 range. Good other teams. Ole Miss. I think Ole Miss is going to go 9-3. They went very hard in the portal. Lane with the offense. Jackson Dart at quarterback. I'd say about 9-3 for Ole Miss. Notre Dame, who's my team. I'm not even gonna lie, right? Notre Dame's my team. Looking at the schedule, it's one of the easiest schedules in the country. Could Notre Dame go 12-0? They could. Have I watched Notre Dame for 25 years now? I have. I think Notre Dame's going to go 10-2. Very easily, they could lose this opening game this week. They still have to play USC. They still have to play Florida State. I just think in the way that it's going with Notre Dame, I think 10-2 is probably where they're going to be at, even though I really like the defense. And I think the offense is going to be better than a lot of people think. But reality check myself here, 10-2. Penn State 10-2, schedule's easy. All you have to do is play Ohio State. You don't have to play Ohio State or Michigan in the same year. I like their offensive pieces. Quarterback, running back, defense. They're always stout there with the schedule that they have, 10-2. Another Big Ten team, Michigan. First year, head coach, Sharon Moore. You lose Jim Harbaugh, you come off the national title, you lose over 20 guys to the draft. Your schedule's very difficult. It's going to be an uphill battle. But what helps Michigan is you have an identity. That's not going to change. You have a defense with some great players up the middle in Graham, and then a guy on the outside in Will Johnson who's very good. So I think Michigan's 8-4, 9-3, just based off of the schedule. the schedule's tough. Texas, USC, Ohio State. It's a very, very tough schedule. And coming in Sharon Moore's first year, you have all this noise with, are they going to have allegations, are they not going to have I don't think anything's going to happen there. Not this year. If it does, it would be unprecedented, but I don't think anything's going to happen, so I would throw that out the door as a Michigan fan. Can't really worry about it right now. But things are going to happen in Sharon Moore's first full year as head coach. Now, I know he coached games last year, but now you are the head guy. Everybody's looking towards you now. There's not Jim Harbaugh in the background all week, and then you just coach on the game days. It's now all you. And learning from the Marcus Freeman experience at Notre Dame, coming off of Brian Kelly's last few years at Notre Dame, where it was 10-win season, and then Marcus kind of struggled in his first year. There's going to be struggles. There's going to be some moments where it's like, why did that happen? So that's why I look at Michigan 8-4, but I'm more 9-3. I think the defense is going to keep them in a lot of games. You know what the identity of the offense is. The only problem I have is just how much did they lose and how much is that going to hurt them, especially early. I think they play Texas week 2. That's going to be a tough game. Now, if they would play Texas later on in the year, maybe have more faith in Michigan to win that one. I already talked about Florida State. I think they'll be 9-3 after watching them. Not too high on them. 3 teams that I think can do very well, kind of in the mix, and give themselves a chance. Mizzou. I like Mizzou a lot. The schedule's very easy in the SEC. They could go 9-3, 10-2 with that schedule, or they could go 8-4. LSU, another SEC team, I think 8-4, 9-3. You lose Jane Daniels. You lose a lot on offense. And at the end of the day, I don't really trust Brian Kelly to sit there in the SEC, in this new formed SEC, with kind of some teams better than them. I think Mizzou's better than them. I think Ole Miss is better than them. I think Texas is better than them. I think Alabama's better than them. I think Georgia's better than them. I like them 8-4, 9-3 in that range. And then the last team I think is going to have a pretty surprising year, even though they lost the number 1 overall pick. I think USC is going to be pretty good. I think USC in the new form Big Ten. I believe in Lincoln Riley's offense. That's not a question. I think their defense will be improved. I think USC could win 9 games. Their schedule's fairly easy, nothing too crazy. I think USC could be that sneaky team with Miller Moss at quarterback. Kid threw like 6 touchdown passes in the bowl game. I think much improved defense with Lincoln Riley. I'm not worried about the offense, and I think his offense going to play some Big Ten teams can be very interesting in some games. I think USC is a little sneaky, could win 9 games. All right, like I said, playoff picks, this was very tough. You think picking 4, kind of tough, but it's not really, because it's like, I'll just take the top 4 conference champs, right? Well, it kind of gets changed a little bit when you look at a 12-team playoff. Like I said, I think Georgia, Ohio State, Clemson, Utah will be 1-4. Looking at the other teams that get in, I think Oregon gets in. I think Texas gets in. I think Penn State gets in. I think Miami gets in. I think Miami's schedule is very easy. You get Cam Ward as a transfer quarterback. You're kind of building a program slowly but surely. It hasn't gone great down there, but look out for Miami. So I like Miami to make the playoff. I like Notre Dame to make the playoff at 10-2. It's one of those seasons for they should make the playoff. If they don't make the playoff with this schedule and the team that they have, it may say blow it up. Like, that's where I'm at with it. Ole Miss, I think, gets in at 9-3. And then I kind of struggled with the last 2 teams because I'm like, I was kind of up in arms with like Bama, Mizzou, Michigan, but I think a sneaky team, Kansas State in the Big 12. You got the curly-headed quarterback. Just in Big 12 football, it gets funky, it gets nasty. A team can go 10-2 and sit there and be like, whoa, look at us. Look at where we're at. So I think Kansas State sneaks into the playoff. This is just a little funky pick. I wanted a little funky pick. I'm different. Wanted to zig while everybody else zags. That's what I do. That's who I am. Kansas State. And then I think the non-power 5 team gets in. I think Liberty gets in. Can't tell you why. I'm just going with Liberty. That's just where I'm at with it. I just go with Liberty. So that's my playoff. Georgia, Ohio State, Clemson, Utah, Oregon, Texas, Penn State, Miami, Notre Dame, Ole Miss, Kansas State, Liberty. Now, I'm going to go with who I think is going to be in the national title game. I'm not going to sit here and, devour, 5 versus 12, and who cares? You don't care. I don't care. Who's going to be in the national title? Who wins it? I think it is going to be a very, I wouldn't say chalk when it comes to the championship game. I think, most people kind of have it a certain way. But I think it's going to be Georgia and Ohio State. I think they're the two best teams coming into this season, and I think they're going to meet at the end. And I'm going to go with Georgia to win the national title just because I don't trust Ryan Day. I think Ryan Day is kind of a fraud. I wouldn't buy into him if I was one of their players. He feels a little fake to me, like fake tough guy. I wouldn't buy into it. Now, can he get there? Yes, they have the team to get there. But at the end of the day, I think Georgia's going to win the national title. Just based off, I trust Kirby. Been there before. Tough guy. I buy into him. Ryan Day talks. I don't buy in. I just don't. He seems like a sleazy used car salesman to me, like when he's trying to motivate a team. So I don't really like it. So I think Georgia wins the national title. I'm going to keep it simple. Georgia, Ohio State play. Georgia wins. All right, I'm going to do a Heisman winner real quick. Look, this is hard to do because I feel like you picked a favorite. It's funky. But I will go with who I think is going to be a finalist. To win the Heisman Trophy, I like Quinn Ewers to win it. I'll go with that. But to be in New York for the Heisman ceremony, I like Cam Rising at Utah, and I like Quishon Judkins, running back for Ohio State. Don't ask me to say his name again. It's not going to happen. I'm going to call him Juds. Juds for Ohio State. That's what I'm going to call him all year now. Juds. Juds for Ohio State, the running back. I have to have an Ohio State player to be a finalist if I think they're going to have the season that they're going to have. I think it's going to be the running back because I think that's going to be what fuels them moving forward. So I think Quinn Ewers wins it, but I like Cameron Rising, sneaky, to be a finalist, and Juds to be a finalist as well. All right, looking at games this week, we have some spicy games, nothing too hot. That comes as the season goes on. I think I have 5 games right here. 5 games I like to look at, the biggest 5 games. We're going to go game number 1 here. Number 8, Penn State, minus 8-point favorite at West Virginia. People are saying that West Virginia can win this game. I get that they were hot towards the end of the year last year. They're at home. I like Penn State to win this game. I like Penn State to cover. Now, do I like them to win? I like them to cover the 8 points. There's just something about Penn State to me that just feels different. A little sneaky, a little snake in the weeds. All this talk, I think they're going to come out. The offense is going to look good. Defense is going to kind of shut up little West Virginia. Old Town Road is not going to take West Virginia home. All right. Number 19, Miami, minus 200-point favorite at Florida. I think this game the line is crazy to me, 2.5 for Miami. I think Miami wins this game by 2 touchdowns. I don't think Florida's very good. I think Florida is kind of in disarray with Billy Napier just a little bit from their recruiting to just the vibe around them. I like Miami by 2 touchdowns. Not going to really sit here and really explain it too much. Game number 3. Number 23 USC versus number 13 LSU. This is a 4-point favorite for LSU. It's in Las Vegas. This game is tricky for me. Very, very tricky. Because it's like, do you trust LSU, SEC versus USC? What's going on? I like USC to win this game. I don't know what it is. It's a gut feeling that I think USC is going to come out with something to prove. I think Lincoln Riley's going to come out with something to prove. Miller Moss, I like the name. I think he's going to be well. I don't trust Brian Kelly. All right, this is Saturday night's game. Number 7 Notre Dame at number 20 Texas A&M. Texas A&M is a 3-point favorite. I get why Texas A&M is favored home. It was a pick 'em to start, and now it's kind of grown. I get it, and then I don't get it. New coach and Mike Elko for Texas A&M. Different vibe. Stadium's going to be rocking, right? First game, so excited. I think it's a close game, but I think Notre Dame wins by a touchdown. Like I said, I really like Notre Dame's offense. Seeing some of their team speed up close in spring was very eye-opening to me. I hadn't really seen that with the Notre Dame team. It's just the overall team speed. I really like it. And I think in a game like this, it kind of feels like it's going to be a close game. It's going to be a little bit of a nail-biter, but I think Notre Dame pulls it out. All right, to me, game of the weekend, I'd say just because it's just the aura around it. Number 14 Clemson versus number 1 Georgia. Georgia's 13.5-point favorite. This game's being played in Atlanta. Basically a Georgia home game. I think, this is one of those games where it's like Clemson can come out and play tough. I don't really think that's going to happen. I think this is going to kind of be like when Georgia played Oregon a couple years ago in the opening game. I think they're going to kind of obliterate them, and I just call this game of the year. What am I doing? Game of the year, game of the week. No. Notre Dame, Texas A&M's your game of the week. What am I thinking? Get your head out of the gutter. Come on, pick it up. I know we're back, week 1. Fix it up. I think Georgia wins. I think Georgia covers. Even though I like Clemson moving on as the season goes on, playing in a game like this, you kind of run into a buzzsaw. That's what I think is going to happen. I have Notre Dame, Georgia, Penn State, Miami, USC. Those are my picks for this week. Georgia's going to win the national title. I believe in that. I feel that. I don't know. I really don't know. But that's what I think. Week 1 college football. Look, we have many more weeks of this. Games are only going to get crazier. This new form season, I think that's what's going to make it fun. If you love college football, it's going to really make you love it even more. And if you're a person that likes it, you're going to end up loving it now with the new playoff format, now with these new conferences, week-to-week games. It's going to be very exciting. Thanks for watching.